to wrap up, why don't you go over logistically what the hearing is actually going to look like? So client gets the phone call. Now we're actually in the hearing. Just for a couple minutes, just go over
Sure.
what the client can expect, so it's not such a
Yeah.
daunting process.
Great question. Yeah, I call it the mechanics, and we'll back up a little bit. Like a week before the hearing, not necessarily 7 days, but usually the week before the hearing. If you have a hearing on a Tuesday, I might call you on a Friday, so it's going to be the week before, but maybe not the Tuesday before your Tuesday hearing. But I'm going to call you and I'm going to tell you this stuff, and it's basically, I call it the preparation. I'm going to tell you the mechanics of the hearing, because that's the big thing that you need to know. What's it like? What's it look like? So yes, the day of the hearing, the morning of the hearing, or the afternoon of the hearing, whenever your hearing time is, around that time, you're going to get a phone call. It's going to either say it's from Social Security, SSA, it's going to say it's from the U.S. government, or it's going to be an area code that you don't recognize. You answer the phone.
Yep.
If your hearing's at 11 o'clock and at 10:53 the phone rings, please answer the call, because it's probably Social Security. And if it's not, if it's Cousin Betty, and Cousin Betty, I can't talk to you right now, Social Security's gonna be calling me. I'll call you back soon. Hang up the phone, clear the line, so when Social Security calls you, you answer. So when you answer, the clerk who's handling the case, it's the judge's clerk, will say, hello, I'm so-and-so with Social Security. We're here to start your 11 o'clock hearing. Mr. Groves is already on the line. And the reason that I'm almost always already on the line is they call me first, because they double check your phone number. And they're like, we have Miss So-and-so's phone number is this. And I'm like, yeah, that's, I talked to her last week, and that is her correct number. And it's the number that we give them, actually. So Mr. Groves is already on the line. Are you ready for your hearing? And then, you as the claimant will say, yeah, I'm ready for my hearing. All right, well, let me connect you to the judge. And the judge is usually the last one to get connected. It's just a conference call. And so when that happens, the judge will come on and say, well, hello, my name is Judge so-and-so, and I'm here to make a new and independent decision based on your medical records, your testimony today, and the Social Security law. I'm not bound by the lower lower level decisions. I'm not even influenced by them. So it always happens. And the judge's main questions after he swears you in, it's the only formal thing, by the way, in a hearing, is that you do get sworn in. He will ask you, even though we're on the phone, please raise your right hand. You do promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Or do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the whole truth, under the penalty of perjury? That'll be the oath that they're asking you to take. And you'll say you do. There's another person in the hearing, which we'll talk about in a minute, who also is going to get sworn in. And then the judge will almost always come out of the gate asking you about identifying information. How old are you? How far did you go in school? Are you married? Who all lives in your household? Oh, you have 3 kids. What are the ages of your kids? And then the judge might ask you some questions about, what does your spouse do? Do you help your children with their schoolwork, stuff like that? But the main meat and potatoes of his next part, his next questions are going to be about your work. When's the last time you worked? What were you doing? Describe it. And of course, what you want to do is you want to describe the job as you did it. I was a mechanic. Well, how much did you lift and carry? And well, there are sometimes I'm lifting or helping to lift, 100-pound, pieces of engine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You have to be on your feet all day long? Yeah, I didn't do any sitting at this. Sometimes I'm on my back underneath the car, but yeah, it's basically I'm on my feet all day. That's what you want to do. If it was a desk job, sit down most of the day? Yeah. Do you have to make, lots of decisions? Yeah. Do you have to use your arms and hands? Yeah, it's a sit-down job. That's what you do. You're using your arms and hands all day long. And wants to know if you had to concentrate on that. Most desk jobs, are ones that you do have to do a lot of thinking, a lot of decision-making, stuff like that. So he's asking you about those things, and you want to describe them as you did them, not as you would try to do them now that you're disabled, as you did them when you were working before you became disabled. After that, it's the only part that I can't tell you exactly what happens, because there's usually a turn to me, or the judge just continues. And the turn to me or the judge continuing will be for your medical conditions. And they will say something, okay, well, let's talk about, why you feel you're disabled. And they'll go through everything they're supposed to. In fact, the law says that they have to consider everything that the medical records show. So if the judge does it, that's what they're going to do. Well, let's start with the back disorder. You have any difficulties being on your feet? Oh, okay. Well, how long could you stand or walk before you'd have to sit down? You having difficulty sitting? Oh, okay. You have to get up and work out the kinks. Okay. Well, how long can you sit before you have to do that? Oh, okay. And if it's a mental health, do you have any difficulties concentrating, staying on task? Oh, well, how long could you concentrate before your mind would wander? So they're going to ask you these kinds of questions unless they turn it over to me to ask it. And this is the one, about half the cases they do. They turn it over to me to ask the medical questions. And guess what? I'm going to ask just the same thing.
Yeah.
You have difficulties being on your feet. You have difficulties concentrating. You have difficulties staying on task. You have difficulties using your arms and hands. So, and we're going to talk about these things. None of this will be a surprise to you because a week before the hearing, I will have talked to you and said, this is what the judge is probably going to ask you. This is what I'm definitely going to ask you. And so that is the meat and potatoes of your hearing, talking about your medical conditions. And remember, what are we there to talk about? Symptoms, symptoms, symptoms. I don't care that you have degenerative disc disease. Well, I care, but I don't care that much. I do care that because of that, you can't walk for very long. You can't be on your feet for very long. You can't sit with your feet flat on the floor like you would be sitting at a desk typing. I care about that. I care that there's pain shooting into your leg and that your pain level is at like a 7 or 8 out of a 10-point scale. I care about that. That's all symptoms, and those are the questions I'm going to ask you. Sitting, standing, walking, lifting, carrying, pain, stuff like that. So we're there to talk about those three things: symptoms, symptoms, symptoms. Same thing with mental health: concentrating, staying on task, following through on things, getting along with other people, adapting to changes. If your boss comes to you, 1 o'clock in the afternoon and says, I need you to do this, and your mental health condition is like, you switch gears on me in the middle of the day and I'm going to shut down. Okay, well, we need to know that. That's a symptom that you would want to talk about in your hearing, and we will talk about that.
Right.
So that's the bulk of the hearing, and then at the end there's that other person that I talked about who also gets sworn in. They're a vocational witness. Social Security calls them a vocational expert. I normally won't, but sometimes just for shop talk we'll call them a VE, which stands for vocational expert. But I rarely will call them an expert in the hearing, especially because the judge usually wants me to call them an expert before they've even opened their mouths. And I'm like, if they say all sorts of garbage, I don't want to have pinned myself in a corner or painted myself in a corner and like, wow, they're testifying all sorts of garbage. I know none of that's true, but yet I've told the judge, yeah, I agree, they're an expert. Anyway, but the vocational witness, I tell my clients that they're not a good guy, but they're not a bad guy. They are not against me. In a Social Security disability hearing, there is nobody against me. I am an advocate for you, and therefore, because you've watched Perry Mason and Law and Order, that there's got to be somebody, against me. If I'm for you, somebody's got to be against you. No, not in a disability hearing. So the vocational witness is not there to tank your case, but he's not there to help you either.
Yeah.
He's there to talk about jobs, and the judge, because it is sworn testimony, will have already likely sworn him in, and we'll ask some questions. Can you classify the claimant's past work? And they'll give some codes and some strength levels. And then they'll ask a series of hypotheticals, and they're all about you, the claimant, but for some reason Social Security doesn't believe that they can ask questions about you like that. So they'll say somebody the claimant's age, 45 years old, and somebody with the claimant's education, they have a 12th grade education, and somebody with the claimant's work history, they were a mechanic for 30 years. If this person was limited to, and then they'll give lots of limitations, and they'll ask the vocational witness, could that person perform the mechanic job? Oh, no. Okay, well, could they perform any job in the national economy? And there's going to be a yes or no answer. Yeah, if there's a yes answer, well, give me those jobs. Give me a smattering. Give me an example. Give me 3 of them. Give me 3 jobs that have that profile that I just gave you. And that's damaging. That's a bad thing. If we get those, Now the judge has an avenue to deny your case, but then the judge is probably going to ask a second hypothetical question to the vocational witness. It's going to be, same question, but now they're limited in blah, 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 blah. Could that person do the mechanic job? Okay. What about, could they do any job in the national economy? No. Okay. Well, if the judge goes with that decision, that's favorable to you, because if you can't do any work, you are by definition disabled.
Yep.
And that part of the hearing is about 10 to 15 minutes long. It's very boring for my clients because you don't participate. You're listening, if you're on the phone, you're listening, and you're hearing all sorts of stuff, but really you're not doing anything. And after the judge has asked a series of questions, I'm going to cross-examine them. I might ask my own series of questions, or I might ask them to defend the testimony they gave, especially if the testimony they gave is garbage. And sometimes it happens. Most of the time it's not garbage, but it's certainly something that I can attack with a follow-up cross-examination question. And like I said, it's boring for the claimant because, they're not speaking, they're not testifying, they're just kind of listening in. And then after all that happens, the judge will give kind of a canned phrase like, well, thank you for the hearing, thank you for appearing. I'm going to consider everything, and I will issue a decision within the next 60 to 90 days, and that concludes our hearing, and everybody can hang up. And then that's the hearing. They last 40 to 45 minutes on average. A quick hearing is 30 minutes. A long hearing is an hour. It'll fly by, though. Most of my clients say, well, that didn't take very long. It was 45 minutes. It didn't seem like 45 minutes. No, because we're having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of flies by. But that's the mechanics of it. What I like about the phone hearings is they're normally pretty close to being on time. And what I mean by that is sometimes they're 5 or 10 minutes early, and sometimes they're 5 or 10 minutes late. In the olden days when we were doing face-to-face hearings, I could be in a hearing office all day long. Some of the hearings will run 3 hours late. And I'd just be sitting there with my client, and they're like, well, our hearing was 3 hours ago. I know, but we have to sit here and wait. That has not happened with the phone hearings. Some of them have been like 30 or 45 minutes late, but usually the clerk will call my office, and they'll talk to one of my employees, tell Mr. Groves that we're running late and we're probably going to be another 15 or 20 minutes. And then I can call my client. They say, hey, listen, I know you've been expecting a call, so was I. They just called and they're running really late, and therefore they'll be calling you in probably the 15 or 20 minutes. And that has happened a handful of times. But, the other hundreds of hearings that I've had since COVID have all pretty much run on time. And mechanically, I prefer them. It seems like the conversations are a little bit clearer because nobody's talking over anybody, because you can't on the phone. If two people are talking on the phone, it's cacophony. Whereas two people talking, over each other in a hearing, you can kind of follow it face to face. But the judge usually warns about that. Please make sure that I'm done asking my question before you answer it. And I will tell you that also in the prep. Don't talk over anybody. Make sure that they're done talking. Don't interrupt. Please, please, please don't interrupt. If the judge is asking a question or the judge is saying something, certainly if the judge is asking the vocational witness questions at the end, don't jump in. Well, that's, I can't do that job. No, that's not your time to speak. It's a vocational witness's time to speak. So please don't jump all over them. It will not go well for you.
Yeah.
You'll probably get your hand slapped. A verbal hand slap from the judge. And you don't want that because it's uncomfortable for everybody.
Right. If you have a question about your disability case, give us a call at 615-453-9151 Monday through Friday, or click the link in the description of this video.